Take some of this 70-year-old undercoating off and do some cleaning up. From the transmission cross member to pretty much right here where like a drive shaft loop would be. I just got to finish that section off, and then we'll get into the frame and then these intersections.
But anyway, long story short, I ran this guy in this modified 55 Chevy.
Weren't you pulling for 20 a gear or something like that?
No, every once in a while, if you race somebody, you'd race for 20 a year. Oh, the Hemi car, we raced for 20 a year.
Go through and wire brush all this stuff. But you can see how just nice the floors are on this thing. I mean, I would heat it, try to scrape it, it wouldn't come off. I'd heat it a little bit more and back forth. Oh, finally got it to start coming off. I'm gonna stay PG. Say that. All right, the fun part of taking off all this undercoating. So we're gonna do a little time-lapse video here. I have no clue on how long this is gonna take me, but yeah. Let's take some of this 70-year-old undercoating off and do some cleaning up. What do you say? So let's move on to time-lapse. Here's what we are looking at. You can see how nice the floors look now. And this little crap that's up here and all this, I mean, now that it's cooled off, you can hit this with a wire brush and it'll come clean. It's not a big deal, you know, but we got all the way to the front, all the way to the back, halfway up here. So I have to finish, you can see where I got into here. So basically I got to finish from the transmission cross member to pretty much right here where like a drive shaft loop would be. I just got to finish that section off, and then we'll get into the frame and then these intersections. But just to give you guys a heads up, you know, some people are like, man, what's the easiest way to get undercoating off? I like using the butane torch and a good stiff paint scraper. This would be like your normal paint scraper. It's kind of flimsy, and then you got one that's a little bit thicker. I like the little thicker one. But again, that probably was about, I'd have to look at the time-lapse video, but it was probably something like 12 to 15 minutes to do from the back seat to the front the front driver's feet. Half that was probably 15 minutes. So once you get it hot and you get it going, it just comes right off. I mean, it comes off. It stinks, but it comes off pretty easy. You know, to do a whole car, to do the undersides and the fender wells and all that, I mean, you would have probably, if you just designated almost your whole weekend to completely cleaning it after this, wire brushing it, and then bombing it and painting it and all that, it'll look great. I mean, when you're done, it'll really look good, and I'm going to show you guys that. So it's nothing crazy, but I know some people are like, man, how do you get the undercoating off? I've tried to use just a wire brush, and if you just use that, that's hard. It takes a long time. This stuff just doesn't want to come off. But the moment you start putting heat into it and you get it kind of gummy, it comes right off. You can see that it comes right off. So, all right, well, my arms are, I think they got some circulation back in them now, so I'm going to get back to getting this side done. Okay, don't worry about trying to speed the process up. It's only going to go as fast as how much heat you're able to put down. And also, don't try to do too big of a section, because if you do, I'd say about a 6x6 is about as big as you're going to be able to heat and get it all off. You start going bigger than that, the undercoating does cool relatively quick. I'm surprised at how fast it actually does kind of cool itself down to where you can't scrape it. So keep it to maybe about a 6x6 section, you'll be good.
It's time to talk everything that is red, white, and blue-collar American muscle. That's right, time to have a little talk here in the Muscle Car Corner.
Dad was the first one to really start getting into cars. And at that point, you know, what was the one that started it all?
A couple of days before I graduated high school, 67, I traded in a car on a 62 Corvette. And it was just a red car, 250 horse, 327 with a 3-speed of all things. And that's what started it all. With the trade-in, I think it was $1,250 for the Corvette minus the trade-in. So that being said, I looked around for a hardtop, and just to show everybody how inexpensive things were, a friend of a friend told me about a guy who needed some money. I drove over to his house in my car. His was a red Corvette. We switched the tops over. For $100, I had a hardtop for it. That's how expensive things were in those days. There was just...
And those things sealed. Awesome to keep the heat in.
They were the worst. You just couldn't imagine driving that thing through the winter. I mean, there was always water on the inside of the windows, but that's not here nor there. That was driving very carefully in the winter and doing my best just to keep it on the side of the road. It wasn't fast when I bought it. It was
what, the 250 horse?
250 horse 327 with like I said, a 3-speed transmission. So it was one of the low price specials.
And once you actually built it, what did you end up doing to it?
I didn't know anything about cars other than what I read in books. I could change spark plugs and set points and things like that, but I read a lot. And so I knew that I had to have somebody that was in town that would be fair about it. And so, excuse me, he kept the car there, pulled the motor, built it, and I think he must have had the 4-speed in it at that time. So he pulled the motor, he went 30 over with fuel injection pistons. The Z28 heads, that's what we called them in those days, were 202s, which started in 65 in the Corvettes. So I had a set of...
so like Fuelie Z28 head.
Yeah, Fuelie Z28s with the 202 intakes.
20216, yep. So then 11-to-1 because you went fuel injected pistons.
Yep.
And then the Isky 505.
An Isky 505, which was way too much camshaft for it. But that's what I did.
The twin Edelbrock intake with the twin Carters.
Twin Carters.
Now, at that time, you were still running whatever the rear end was.
It was a 336 open. It was the standard rear end. And I was at a gas station one night. I can't remember what was going on, maybe visiting a friend or something. And a couple of seedy looking guys pulled in, and they said, well, we got some car parts for sale. And they're not hot, you know.
Swear to God, they're not stolen.
I didn't get a receipt. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
So anyway, in the back of the car, there was a posse, a pig. And I said, well, what gears are these? And he said, it's 411. Showed me how to count them. And $20. That's all it ran. When the motor was assembled, the guy that built the motor, he treated me right, said, let's go with a little bit heavier duty clutch. So I had a Schaefer rev lock in it. Probably all of you guys remember that. And also the distributor was a Mallory rev pole, REV-POL, I think. And the guy that built the motor recommended that I run that. So I had plenty of spark. Car ran great. I didn't always run the 411. Yeah, I guess I did. When I raced later on, I borrowed a 456 from a friend of mine, a 456 Posse, and that's what I raced it with. But I'm pretty sure I ran
the slicks at the same time.
I borrowed the slicks from the same guy. He was a good buddy.
But at that point, now when you went, because the car went what, 1320s, 1330s, was that with the 410 or the 56 in it, or was it all that same night?
I only raced it the one time, and that was at Grattan Raceway. Some of the old timers might remember that. It was just a straight portion of a road racing course, and
too much carburetor on it because half the time the thing would bog. But you got one really good pass out of it.
The times that I remember were in the 1330s or the 1320s. I'll be honest, this was a long, long time ago. I had one good time, and we used to call them popcorn times. Sometimes they would give you a time, a really good time, just to keep you racing. And it was a 1290 something, and I had a Hurst shifter at the time, and I had just a perfect shift, probably the best run I ever made, and it was a 1290 something. So I think the car really did that time, and I think the other two times were more.
Well, you're fighting traction. There wasn't any VHT down. Track prep back then was, rosin or resin on there, and, you bleach burnouts and crap like that. So, but back then, I mean, if you're talking back in 67, 68,
Yeah.
And you got a 1290 car, that's legit. So, well, you ended up doing a little bit of just stalling on the fact that you lost against a Hemi.
I'm driving through Big Boys. Car had the gears and stuff in it. Some guys were leaning up against the front of a car about my age, and it turned out that they were home from Vietnam for somebody's wedding, and they were leaning up, and they called me, you're driving Daddy's car, and because I didn't look very old in those days. Driving Daddy's car, you better get it home before they know it. Your dad's car is missing and stuff, and so and it was good-natured teasing. And so they said, you want to run that thing, and sure. So all five of them piled into the car. This was a 66 or 7. It wasn't 8. I know that for a fact. It was a Hemi car. I want to say, I've told you the story many times. Was it white or was it gold?
I thought it was a white one.
I think it was white.
Yeah.
And so we actually did it on one of the streets in Grand Rapids. We were out of our minds. And so it was, 1, 2, 3, go. And I took these guys. There were 5 guys there, and I think they left 1 back. So there were 2 in the front and 2 in the back. And so I thought, this is going to be easy. Power shifted into second, nothing to it. Power shifted into the third as they went by me, laughing and giving me the finger. And he took me all the way through third and into fourth. By that time, we were going pretty fast, and there was a red light coming up. So we both eased off it. So I got my ass handed to me by a Hemi with 4 guys.
But that's just one loss.
I also had an expensive street race with the Corvette that was a miracle that I won it. The guy kept pestering me and wanted to run it, called me a bunch of names and stuff, and wanted to run it for $100. But I had enough friends that kicked in the money, just in case I would lose, because I didn't have the $100. But anyway, long story short, I ran this guy in this modified 55 Chevy.
Weren't you pulling for 20 a gear or something like that?
No, every once in a while, if you race somebody, you'd race for 20 a gear. Oh, the Hemi car, we raced for 20 a gear. So if you're going into third, you were ahead, then you took the whole for $80.
Yeah.
But this guy wanted to run for $100. So it was dark out. The guys towed me out there on a chain. I started the engine. They blinked their lights like a mile before we got there. I started my engine up, had it warmed up, because you just got there and talked real quick and then raced. And I beat the guy, and there was just a lot of cussing and
you jumped the gun and
finger pointing and everything else, but I won it, and I can still. It's still a good feeling. I beat the guy.
You just like, I won.
And the guys that lent me the money said, "Just keep it. It was worth it watching you beat that guy." And I flipped. I've got Hot Rod magazine. Scotty already knows this, from the 50s that I still have in the 60s. I was always into the more detailed cars, the customs that had carpeted trunks and perfectly detailed engine compartments, and that's the way he and I are now. And that was kind of the impetus for it, was reading all those magazines and seeing show cars. And I still remember seeing the metal fake paint jobs and the angel hair around them, and just knew that all of my cars had to be done that nice.
I want to do this.
I want to do that. I want to detail my cars to the max. So I entered the Corvette for 2 years in a row, I think in 67 and 68, because I sold it in 69. And I took third place both years in, I think it was called Custom Sports. And
what was the name of the girl?
I'm not...
Cinnamon girl.
All cars had a clever
They
name.
still do. I mean, everybody, you know,
Had a
everybody.
clever name, and that's
have to.
that was named after a song, and it just, I don't know, it just.
I'm sure a lot of guys out there are the same way, where they name their cars, you know, whatever, and it's like, why did you name your car that? There's a meaning behind it.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
didn't have a girlfriend named Cinnamon, but I just liked the song, so it just clicked.
So hit us down in the comments if you kind of dug the old muscle car corner here, and just sitting back, having some nice little conversations and reminiscing about the good old days, and you know, for the old man, where it all kind of started from. I have my stories of where it started from, and we'll go into that stuff. But hit us down in the comment if you end up liking what this is, and if you guys want to see, you know, a little 5-6 minutes of just kind of talking and reminiscing. So let us know. So all of the scraping is done. So here's where we're at on the 55. You can see cleared out. Got up in there. Oh. And then we got all the way down the side. Now I still have to go through and wire brush all this stuff. But you can see how just nice the floors are on this thing. Well, looks like I gotta get, oh, I missed a little bit there. But just where everything's just super, super solid. Oh, missed a little bit right there too. Some of this is just like this stuff, I can't get this off. I think this might be some of the, just from paint and stuff like that. So when I wire brush, I'll try to get through this, you know, but the frame turned out nice. You know, granted, I haven't even painted anything. Same thing over here, where I just got all this taken off. And same with this stuff. I mean, that's bare metal right there. I just can't. Looks a little rough. So I think once I wire brush it and all that, it'll clear itself off. But it turned out really, really nice for 70-year-old floors. Like I said, it's all the braces are really nice, in good shape. So I am going to do a little bit of work here on the alternator. Oh, I've already taken that brake line out, and I'm going to do some trimming on this guy, take this section away, and do a little bit of work over here on this guy, and open this up a little bit. I messed up. I messed up bad on this thing. When I ended up doing the undercoating on this thing, if you're doing it on the frame, the floor, the firewall, you can use heat. Oh, man. So I was doing it on quarter panels, and I mean, I would heat it, try to scrape it, it wouldn't come off. I'd heat it a little bit more, and back and forth. Oh, finally got it to start coming off. I'm going to stay PG. I'll say that. I was at the point where I was ready to stop videoing, where I was like, I'm done, because yeah, that's not rust. That is my stupid ass ended up going through and bubbling the paint. I didn't warp the quarter panels. I'll show you the other side. Oh, you can see in the white. Yep. So hopefully you guys can take from my F up. If you're gonna do, because I still got to do the front fenders. The front fenders are caked in this crap. So I'm probably going to try the dry ice and get it to where obviously it'll freeze it, become so brittle you should be able to just break it off. I've heard of doing it both ways. The frame, the floor, the firewall, you can use heat, works out fine. You guys saw what I did. It comes off pretty easy. I'm glad it was my car and I wasn't doing this for a customer. But I'm at a loss for words. I'm at a loss for words. I know I'm going to end up painting the car, you know, and like I said, I didn't warp the quarter panels, but I'm really trying to not to curse here. But it was just one of those bonehead moments where it's like, are you kidding me? Are you friggin' kidding me? And at that point, this is where my brain's at right now, and you know how you start thinking of kind of on the spot type of thing. I know I'm going to repaint the car. And this kind of put that nail in the coffin of like, you know what? All I literally have to do is just pull off some trim, some window trim, taillights, and a rear bumper. And, you know, the interior is already gutted. There's no wiring in the car. I mean, it's already basically to that point of being blown apart. Why not finish it out? I just was, man, I was just planning on getting the thing up and running, even though it was, you know, an old paint job and all that. And I'm sure you guys see it. It's like, man, it looks really good. Now, you see it in person, and there's a lot of chips in the paint. And it was painted. This is a lacquer paint job, and this was painted back in like '92. When I peeled off some of the paint, I could tell that they stripped it down to bare metal, which is great. But it just, I think at that point, I'm just going to pull tail lights, pull the rear bumpers, pull some of the trim off. And I think we're going to paint this thing. I've been holding off on it, but it's just at that point where after I bubbled the freaking quarter panels, once I get the black car up and running and getting that going, once those parts show up, this is going to be on a pause anyways. So I'm going to put the focus in on the black car, get that running, enjoy that. I'm going to take my time on the 55. But you guys out there know, if you do your own body work and paint, that it's just one of those things where it's going to take me another summer. It'll take me all summer to do the body work on this. And don't get me wrong, this thing is very, very clean, very, very nice. You know, she's straight, she's nice, she's clean, she's from Tucson, Arizona. But it's still stripping everything down. Oh, God. Stripping everything down, and I got to get the doors to line up a little better, and doing that stuff, it just takes time. So I think I'm just going to blow the car apart and go from there. The motor's just sitting in the car right now. It was just for fun, just to put it in. I still got to get a tranny built and all that. So I'll still go through, do the brake lines, fix the alternator stuff. I'll still go through and do that stuff, but yeah, I think. I'm thinking that's going to be the next step, is doing some body work and paint. So it just happened, and I almost didn't want to even share it with you guys, but I'll show you my mistakes and my screw ups, and I'll show you the things that I do correctly. So I don't want to hide anything. I just if you guys make those same mistakes, and I'd hate for somebody out there to do what I just did on my car, going, man, I followed muscle car, or followed Scott, and the SOB, said it would work and it didn't work. Well, I don't want any of you guys having that happen to you. So if it's on your quarter panels, fenders, things like that, either be really, really careful and have a cold rag on the other side, or try the dry ice. Try something else. So anyways, let's get moving on that alternator. So with that trimmed out, now I got a little bit better idea of exactly what I'm going to have to do. And you can see how I got this notched out. That kind of clearance we got down there. What I'm going to do, because I also have to make room for the nuts that I put on there just so that bolts don't fall out. Well, it's got to move back that far. Same thing that I got going on up here. So the whole thing's got to move that way, a quarter of an inch. So what I'm going to do is, you can see I already put some black marks down. I'm going to basically do like a bucket, like a cup, like a 180. Pretty much what you could use is like a chunk of exhaust pipe, 2-inch, 3-inch, whatever, and that'll give you that nice swoop. That'll basically give me, this nice swoop in here to put what I need right there. That's pretty much what I'm going to do here. And I've already marked it back another 1/4 inch back here. I have room. I got, probably a 1/4 inch in here, but I don't want to be super close to this. So I'm going to go back probably about another, I might as well just go back another 1/2 inch just to be safe. And then I'm going to dip this whole thing down all the way, to this front section. That way I can get that bolt in and out. And then over here, you can see where I have a notch here. And, looking from this top side, I'm going to slip you guys in here. but you can see I'm hitting right there where the old motor plate used to be. So in the back section it's not bad, but up here it's a little closer. Well, I'm still gonna trim that section out. You can see that black mark there. Then I got a black mark up front here. Well, the thing is, I know I'm moving the camera around like crazy. I apologize, guys. But I still have to move it over. I'm not in the holes yet, so it still needs to go that way a little bit. So I'm going to move the whole thing over, this whole thing over, probably at least a ½ inch, if not maybe go 3/4 of an inch. And I'm going to have to just notch into the frame. So that'll take care of that and that. But first things first, I'm going to notch it. Then we're going to put this whole thing back on, double check, make sure it's going to work, and then we'll go from there. So let's do some more cutting. Yeah! Holes are made. So that's what we got. There and there. So now, ooh, excuse me. Let's grab our can of air. Let me find the air. There we go. There we go. Now, whoop. Now we're going to try the alternator on, and let's see what kind of distances and all that we have to make up for. It's really close to fitting, so I just want to see what kind of gaps we have, and then you have to take into consideration the thickness of the material that you're using. So, show you what I'm talking about. I figure now that everything's trimmed how it should be, I can put this stuff on and get a little bit better idea of what's going on. Now I'm just going to do just like finger tight on everything. You know, as long as it's in the holes, that's all I really care about. Because that's going to be good enough to tell me, you know, what I have to do or how far I have to move things. So now, that being said, oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I went back far enough there. I'll show you guys what I'm seeing. And then up front, oh, well, I gotta move it over. Yep. I gotta move this front one over. Oh, I gotta move that cut over. Oh man, probably, I'd say 3/4 of an inch to an inch. Here, let me pop you guys off and show you what I'm talking about. So this top one, on the driver's side here, this is all good. That right there, plenty of clearance. Plenty of clearance. Not quite a finger width, but you got to remember, this is already at full extension. So this adjuster, the belt's already tight. So that's why I just left it here, knowing that this is where it's going to be. So that's plenty of room. And I got about 1/8 of an inch, you know, to the back side here to the alternator, which I'm fine with. But I'll show you this front section here where I trimmed all that out. Well, that's plenty over there, but I need to go whoop whoop that way a little bit more. Probably about where that grind mark is. I'm going to go to there and then take that section out. So now you can see where I made room for this guy by eliminating that. So I think I can come flat off this. So this will just get welded flat. I'll just block that off. I'll come here and then I'll I'll dunk it down and then come up. So I'm going to do just a little bit more trimming on that guy and then go from there. But that gives me plenty of adjustability in here. I can get to the bolt. I probably shouldn't have had to go that far. I probably should have been about there. But then you got this big blocky sucker in here to where you're making like, you know, extra shapes going up and over. And that I can literally go flat, make like a little 180 whoop, you know, 9 o'clock to 6 o'clock. And then at that point, it's super simple. That is also super simple. So not too worried about it. Okay, guys, so it's pretty much, you can see behind me, it's already a little after 4 o'clock. So I'm going to wrap it up for today. All the cutting's done. I finished everything up there. Next one that you guys are going to see, we're going to do the metal fabbing. So hit the old notification bell on that one so you guys know what's coming up. And remember, every Tuesday, 4:30, we end up putting up a new video. So I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Don't forget to hit that share, like, subscribe. And I always love reading the comments. So feel free to put anything you want in there, nothing negative. But till we meet again, my friends, see you on the next episode.